The room went silent when the system froze. 27 people staring at a spinning circle like it was some oracle about to spit out judgment. But judgment already arrived. It wore Italian leather loafers, reeked of cologne, and had a Harvard MBA framed above its head like a halo made of ego. I knew it was coming. The crash. The moment of public failure, because I built the damn thing. And I built it to break, cleanly and silently, if the wrong hands tried to run it without me. 3 weeks before that moment, I sat in the hallway outside the exec wing, invisible as usual. I'm Mara, by the way. Senior systems architect if you read the paperwork. Back-end girl if you ask Dylan, the CEO's golden boy. I'm self-taught, a coder who started with dial-up and duct tape. I don't do public speaking, I don't do Harvard, I do function, I do precision. And I wrote 92% of the code that's about to power a $78 million logistics deal, except nobody's supposed to know that. At 11 p.m., they need me. At 11 a.m., I'm a ghost. I'm the one they ping when their dashboards choke or the pipeline clogs mid-sync. The one who stays late while Dylan rehearses his swagger in the mirrored windows. I built the whole back end to scale like a spine. Quiet, rigid, unseen until someone tries to walk without it. By the way, before this story spirals the way it did in real life, if you're watching and haven't hit subscribe yet, please do. I know 97% of folks don't subscribe even though you're listening. It helps our team a ton, keeps this kind of story going, and yeah, it means the world. Just hit the button. Thanks. Back to that hallway. I just finished updating the token access routine. Nothing flashy, just a small biometric gate baked into the deployment script. Not sabotage. Safeguard. The platform was too valuable to leave wide open, and frankly, too complex to run without someone who knew its bones. That's me. I wasn't planning a coup. I was protecting a system built on sandbags and sales decks. But Dylan thought he could wing it. That deal with the Fortune 500 buyer, it was supposed to be my quiet redemption. I prepped the environment for weeks, checked every script, ran failovers twice a night. The buyer's CTO sent over specs that made my skin itch from their optimism, but I made it work. I made it clean, ready, stable. And then the CEO told me I'd be standing by. Dylan would lead the pitch. He's the new face of the company, they said. Just in case anything breaks, Mara, you'll be there. That's like asking the pilot to sit and coach while the CEO's nephew flies the plane because he watched Top Gun once. He didn't even ask how to log in, just strutted in with his teeth-polished confidence and smirked like the system was a PowerPoint deck. Let a real leader handle the room, he said, fingers already on my laptop. My laptop, the one I configured with secure access and biometric dual gate just for this build. I opened my mouth, closed it again. Let it happen. Because you learn after enough dismissals and late-night handoffs that sometimes letting someone fail is the only language they respect. And when it froze, oh, it didn't just freeze. It shut down with elegance. Silent exit. No error message, no crash log. Just a smooth nothing. Because nothing is what you get when you remove the person holding the blueprint. I sat back, crossed my arms, and waited. I wasn't angry. Not yet. That came later. Right now? Right now, I was tired of proving myself to people who hadn't earned the right to doubt me in the first place. I knew I was about to be replaced the second they wheeled in that damn catering tray. You don't bring in rosemary croissants and imported espresso for a routine strategy sync. You do it when there's a coronation coming. And right on cue, in walks Dylan, Harvard ring glinting like a threat, wearing a blazer so tight I could see his entitlement pulse through the seams. Fresh off some executive immersion program he probably slept through while hungover on generational wealth. No laptop, no notes, just a smirk and a resume someone else paid to format. Team, the CEO beamed, I'd like to introduce the new face of strategy, Dylan. Nobody clapped, which was almost comforting. I sipped my burnt coffee and stared at my terminal, running deployment simulations. It was window dressing, really. I already had the demo infrastructure ready, but pretending to be busy helped when I had to listen to him throw buzzwords around like frisbees at a trust fund picnic. Omni-channel synergy, user-forward velocity, tech-first paradigm, a whole salad bar of nothing. Then he pointed at me. Me in my faded hoodie and dry shampoo hair. I assume the back end's been handled, Mara, right? His mouth curled like my name had a bad aftertaste. Just make sure the system doesn't have a stroke mid-demo. I'll handle the front end. Real storytelling. Big vision. Not code monkey stuff. And I sat there. Just sat. Like a good little ghost. The CEO chuckled like it was charming. That's my boy. Dylan's going to lead the pitch. Buyers want to see confidence, charisma, Harvard caliber. Mara, get the platform ready, will you? Stand by in case anything technical breaks. In case. As if everything I'd done for the last 18 months hadn't been building toward this pitch. As if my 12-hour weekends and midnight database rebuilds were just background noise to this boy's entrance music. I had rewired the way logistics ran on their platform, split pipelines, dynamic resync without data duplication, built safeguards into every node. And now I was the in case it breaks girl, like I was the spare tire they didn't want to use but legally had to keep in the trunk. I didn't argue. You learn not to when your wins get framed as luck and your name gets left off slides you built. But inside, I was cracking. Not angry. No, not yet. Just brittle. Brittle from years of holding the system together while people like Dylan used it as a stage prop. I walked out of that meeting with my hands in my pockets, fingers clenching my key token like a rosary. No one noticed. No one asked what I thought about the pitch, about the load order, about the fact that the real-time dashboard needed a final auth pass to sync with the buyer's architecture. But I wasn't going to stop them. Not this time. Because maybe, just maybe, letting legacy overtake logic was the only way to make the system crash loud enough for them to hear it. The pre-demo room smelled like stress and surface-level confidence. You know the type. Overcompensating cologne, citrus disinfectant, and the stale stink of a startup pretending it's enterprise-ready. The buyer's team had just arrived. All suits and quiet competence, eyes sharp as hell. You could tell they were there to verify, not be dazzled, which made what came next all the more painful to watch. I had just finished syncing the final deployment to the buyer's test environment. Token-based activation complete, load balancer primed, every single module humming like a tuned engine waiting for the green light. It was stable. It was clean. It was mine. I closed the lid on my laptop like a parent tucking in a child before their first recital. Then Dylan swaggered in, adjusting his cufflinks like he was about to audition for Shark Tank. He took one look at me and smirked. Don't worry, Mara. I've got this. Harvard taught us to lead, not tinker. I stood up. Calm, not confrontational. Just make sure you use the secure launch script. It requires the physical token to shift into active mode. Sandbox looks functional, but it'll drop any external calls. It's a safeguard. Dylan rolled his eyes like I'd just recited a recipe for instant mashed potatoes. It's a demo, not a missile launch. You coded it, right? Then it should work. I opened my mouth again, closed it. He was already walking toward my laptop. Dylan, wait, it's tied to my token. Without it, it won't. Give me that, he snapped, snatching the laptop from the table like it owed him money. A Harvard man should present this, not a basement YouTube nerd. I felt the heat rise up my neck but swallowed it like I always do. Basement nerd. Cute. If only he knew how many Fortune 100 systems were running on back-end solutions I'd written in my so-called basement. But sure, let the varsity mascot lead the parade. He clicked through the bootloader and smiled at the buyer's team like he was revealing the Sistine Chapel. The screen flickered, loaded the intro banner, paused. Then the wheel spun, and spun, and spun. Dylan's face went from smug to confused in under 6 seconds. The buyer's VP of Ops leaned forward. Is that normal? Dylan clicked the trackpad. Nothing. Tapped a few keys. Nothing. The system wasn't frozen. It was just empty, like a beautiful car frame with no engine under the hood. That's odd, he muttered. Probably a Wi-Fi thing. I didn't move, didn't smirk, didn't sigh. Not my circus today. I just stood in the corner, arms folded, watching it unfold, watching him try to resuscitate something he never even tried to understand. And for a flicker of a moment, I felt it. That strange blend of shame and dark satisfaction. Because this wasn't just a failed demo. This was a system rejecting its imposter. Dylan's voice cracked somewhere around the 4th excuse. It's just a latency issue, should buffer in a second. Probably the VPN, or maybe the staging server isn't synced with the prod branch. He was reaching now, hands fluttering over the trackpad like it might offer absolution. It didn't. The screen stared back, blank and unforgiving. Across the table, the buyer's CTO leaned toward his team and whispered something I couldn't hear, but I didn't have to. Their body language was already shifting. Phones being checked, bags quietly zipped, water bottles capped. The deal, once a near certainty, was hemorrhaging confidence by the second. And Dylan? He just kept digging. I don't know what Mara did to the back end, he blurted, turning his flustered face toward me. We told her to keep things simple. Sometimes self-taught developers over-engineer things, right? I didn't blink. I could have torched him in front of the room. I had the receipts, Git logs, token keys, every version control timestamp with my ID stamped beside the commits, like a silent army of witnesses. But I didn't need to raise my voice, because the system had already done it for me. Someone from our exec team hissed my name like a fire alarm. Mara, can you fix it? One of them whispered, the desperation sugar-coated in fake concern. Please, just get it running. We can walk it back. I stepped forward, calm, grounded, my badge still clipped sideways on my hoodie, not a blazer in sight. There's nothing to fix, I said. He removed the access layer. The room went quiet. Buyer's lead counsel stopped mid-note. Dylan blinked like I was speaking Elvish. I turned the laptop around and pointed to the console log. This environment was designed to require dual token authorization to enable external API responses. That safeguard is built to prevent exactly this, unauthorized presentations without oversight. Sandbox mode doesn't sync to external queries. It can't. There's no bug here. The system is doing what it was designed to do. Dylan scoffed. That's ridiculous. Who builds something that won't run without a babysitter? The CTO of the buyer's team stood, slid his chair in slowly, and nodded at his crew to begin packing. Then he turned to me. Can I speak with you privately? I followed him into the hallway, same one where I used to sit unseen, eavesdropping on meetings I should have been invited to. Only now, he was looking at me like I was the only adult in a room full of toddlers holding loaded weapons. Why would a system fail that cleanly? He asked. No malice. Just curiosity. I looked him in the eye. Because it wasn't designed to run without oversight. He didn't nod, didn't smile, just stood there, absorbing it like data. Then he said, almost too quietly, smart, and walked away. I stood alone in that hallway, heart steady, breath low, not triumphant, not bitter, just done pretending to be invisible in a room powered by my work. They called me to fix something. I told them the truth. They broke it themselves. The call came 3 hours after the demo imploded. I was sitting at home with my laptop closed for once, staring at a cold cup of coffee I'd poured but never drank. There was a calm in the apartment that felt alien, like the aftermath of a storm where even the air knows something's changed. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mara Lane? The voice asked, low and direct. Speaking. This is Jordan Caro, the CTO from Alden Freight. I straightened without meaning to. He didn't sound angry. He sounded clinical, focused, which somehow made it worse. We ran a post-mortem, dug into your Git history. You're the architect of the platform, aren't you? Not Dylan. It wasn't a question. It was a confirmation of what he already knew. Yes, I said simply. I didn't qualify it. I didn't apologize. For once, I didn't diminish myself out of habit. He exhaled. Thought so. Clean architecture, modular hierarchy, token-triggered external engagement. That's not the work of someone who just helps out with bugs. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. He continued, voice quieter now. Listen, they're going to come to you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon, with smiles, flowers, legal pads, apologies. They'll try to pull you back in and pretend you were part of the success story all along. A pause. Then, do not open the door. I closed my eyes, not because I was tired, but because I felt something inside me finally go still. Like I'd been trying to stand up straight in a room with a tilted floor for years, and now the building had finally collapsed. I won't, I said. We've formally withdrawn from the deal, he added. The board's already moving on. We can't risk a system that depends on someone being ignored in the chain of command. And then, softer, almost regretful. It's a shame. It didn't have to go this way. He hung up. I stared at my phone for a long time after that, watched the screen fade back to black. No alerts, no emails, no crisis pings, just quiet. Somewhere across town, I imagined the conference room chaos. Dylan babbling, the CEO pacing, someone in legal whispering about liability, probably trying to figure out how to frame the failure without admitting whose fingerprints were on the system's foundation. They'd search for a spin, for a scapegoat, for anything but the truth, that the platform didn't fail. It just refused to cooperate with people who didn't respect the one who built it. I wasn't angry, not even smug, just hollow. Vindicated, sure, but not triumphant. Because none of this had to happen. If they'd listened, if they just valued execution over optics, code over charisma, but they didn't. And now they were bleeding out from a wound they gave themselves. And I was done playing the medic. By morning, the office had gone full triage, executives in dress shirts and panic, whispering in corners, slamming doors they used to glide through. The glass conference room where I'd once waited to be looped in later was now a war zone of half-finished coffee cups and crumpled agendas. The board had descended like vultures in black blazers. And Dylan? He was nowhere to be seen. Rumor said he'd been asked to reflect remotely. Translation: the CEO was buying time, shoving his son under the rug while keeping the name on the building unsmudged. But that's the thing about legacy. When it's built on borrowed merit, it burns like dry paper. Around 10:14 a.m., I got the email. Subject: urgent, reinstatement proposal. The body was all sugar. Polite desperation, offers of a revised compensation structure, expanded creative control, and immediate reinstatement to lead systems architect. Their words, not mine. It read like a half apology scrawled in corporate speak. We now fully recognize your integral role and would love to invite you back to guide us through next steps and help rebuild confidence with the client. As if I hadn't been guiding them silently for years. As if the system hadn't already spoken louder than any VP ever had. I didn't reply. Instead, I attached one file. License, ownership, pot, operability, conditions, v2.pdf. No cover note, no smiley face. It was a legal document I drafted 6 months prior after my last request for title recognition had been ignored. A clause buried on page 6 under Runtime Environment and Deployment Triggers outlined the following. All production instances of the platform's operational layer require both 1. Biometric confirmation from the originating architect, and 2. Signed license transfer of runtime permissions. In the absence of either, deployment defaults to sandbox mode with limited functionality. My signature was there, dated, witnessed, filed. The moment they'd let Dylan grab the wheel without my consent, they'd effectively parked the system in neutral with the engine running. I watched the read receipt pop up within 5 minutes. Then silence. Not a call. Not a ping, not a single follow-up. They knew. They'd spent the last 24 hours trying to resuscitate a body that refused to breathe for them. And I didn't demand anything. I didn't negotiate. I didn't leverage. I just didn't unlock it. There's a certain power in restraint, in choosing silence over spectacle. While they scrambled, clawing through calendar invites and shareholder calls, I sat with my coffee, finally warm this time, and let the machine speak for itself. It was locked. Not out of vengeance, but out of principle. You don't get to bypass the builder and then beg her for the keys. It started as a whisper on the forums, one of those industry subreddits where anonymous profiles post leads that turn into headlines by morning. A new logistics optimization firm had been quietly registered 2 weeks prior. No public website. No press release. Just a 3-sentence filing buried in a Delaware LLC database with 2 names attached. Mine and Jordan Caro's. The buyer's CTO didn't wait. The day they pulled out of the original deal, he made his next move. Fast. Surgical. He knew where the value was, and it wasn't in a sales deck or a surname. It was in code, function, stability. He came to me not with offers, but with alignment. Let's build it the right way, without the theater. And I agreed, because some systems deserve to be rebuilt without the ego dragging behind them like dead weight. By the time the news hit TechSlate, my old company was already drafting damage control. A creative divergence between leadership teams, internal restructuring to improve agility, recommitment to our core values. All smoke. no spine. Dylan was quietly demoted. His new title, VP of Special Projects, which in corporate terms is one step above ghosting someone with a severance check. His LinkedIn went silent. The blazer photo stayed, but the smug captions stopped. The CEO stopped appearing at town halls. Word spread that he was focusing on strategic transitions, which everyone knew meant cleaning up the glass his son shattered. Inside those walls, I could picture it clearly. Whiteboards scrubbed, war rooms emptied, consultants hired to decipher a system they never bothered to understand when it worked flawlessly under my fingertips. All those late nights I spent holding their tech together while they handed credit to the next loudest voice in the room, gone, dismantled by their own arrogance. Outside, we were already iterating. Faster, cleaner. No bloated oversight or quarterly fluff, just execution. Jordan brought in engineers who spoke my language, builders, not branders. We used pieces of the original logic and rewired the rest. It wasn't revenge, it was rebirth. But there was still a sting. Not for what I lost, because truthfully, I hadn't lost anything, but for what they never let themselves see. Legacy isn't about nameplates or tenure. It's about what actually works. They bet on gloss. I bet on utility. And now, the only thing they owned was the echo of a deal they never understood. They showed up 3 days after the news broke. Not the CEO, of course. He was too busy stepping back for personal reasons. Not Dylan, either. Word was he was tucked away in some innovation bunker, rebranding spreadsheets as breakthroughs. No, they sent the suits. 2 of them. One from legal, one from what they now called strategic partnerships. Both with smiles so tight I could see the pressure behind their teeth. "We just want to have a conversation," the woman from partnerships said, unfolding a folder with tabs and glossy mock-ups. "There's still room for mutual success here." I didn't say anything, just let her talk. "There's a lot of interest in your role with the new startup," she continued. "We think it'd be a great story to tell. Mara Lane returns, reclaims her rightful place, full creative autonomy, equity, of course, lead title, public acknowledgement, press if you want it, we can align narratives, frame it as a collaboration, not a conflict." The guy from legal chimed in. "We've even drawn up a draft of joint IP ownership. Clean lines, mutual benefit, retroactive inclusion of your contributions under our umbrella, so everyone wins." I took the packet, flipped through it while they talked, like I was browsing a menu I had no intention of ordering from. Bonuses, deferred comp, a vague promise of stock options with milestone cliffs I could smell from a mile away, titles that meant everything on LinkedIn and nothing when it came time to make decisions. It was all very pretty, very late. I closed the folder, smiled, and said, "I don't think your system meets the requirements for my code anymore." Silence. A blink. Then a shift in posture from polite to corporate. The air in the room turned metallic. "We should let you know," legal said carefully, "if the core IP overlaps in any way with existing components. We're prepared to escalate. We'd prefer not to, obviously, but the ownership lines are blurry." I nodded slowly, as if considering it. Then I reached into my drawer and slid across a single printed page. "Page 14, Exhibit C," I said. "Clause on biometric-dependent runtime licensing. Non-transferable, not replicable, not reverse engineerable without triggering breach. Dated, signed, enforced." He read it. His jaw clenched. No more threats, no more smiles. They left in silence, taking their folder of empty promises with them. And I didn't gloat. I didn't vent. I didn't even breathe a little easier, because there was no satisfaction left. Just a clean line between what I built and what they lost. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity, and sometimes the best revenge is no longer caring if they ever understand why they failed. The knock came at 9:42 a.m., not loud, but deliberate, the kind meant to suggest patience while still demanding presence. I didn't get up. Just watched through the side pane as the courier shifted from foot to foot, sweating in his blazer, clutching a thick envelope and a bouquet of lilies so white they practically glowed. Nice touch, expensive. Like someone in PR Googled forgiveness flowers and panic bought the first result. I could guess the contents without opening it. A fresh contract, polished to a shine. An NDA with more pages than integrity. Probably a letter typed by some ghostwriter on behalf of a CEO too embarrassed to show his own signature. They always come back when the optics shift. When the headlines stop flattering. When the board starts asking questions they can't answer. I let the courier leave both items on the welcome mat, right between the Do Not Disturb sticker and the printout I'd taped to the door. No deliveries, no apologies. Inside, the new office buzzed quietly. Glass walls, natural light, a small team in the bullpen writing actual code instead of strategy decks. No one here cared what school you went to. They cared if your build deployed without errors. My kind of people. I logged into the system, our system. The platform was live, real-time syncing, zero latency on the logistics graph, 40% less compute usage than the last build. We'd stripped out the vanity modules and replaced them with architecture that respected scale instead of pretending to be impressive. It ran like a dream because it had no one left to impress. Just work to do. Jordan slid a file across my desk, quietly, no theatrics. Signed off on the Singapore branch, all green lights, he said, sipping from his chipped mug. That was it. No fanfare, just progress. And me? I leaned back in my chair, took a sip of my coffee. Hot, finally. The courier was long gone, the flowers would wilt outside, the contract would yellow in the sun. None of it mattered anymore. They wanted a Harvard face. I gave the code a future instead.